Well, hello, Logic class. Coming to you again through these video lectures. I hope that last week's lesson went okay for you. I'm going to be handling actually a shorter lesson today. You'll get a little bit of practice of working on establishing conclusions in this lesson, and then you'll be taking a test. And so hopefully all of this stuff is coming together and you'll have a test to take at the end of this week. So let's get into it. Here we're at lesson 32. We're establishing conclusions together. Dorothy Sayers may have been right when she said the practical utility of formal logic today lies not so much in the establishment of positive conclusions as in the prompt detection and exposure of invalid inference. Now, what she was saying in that statement is that a lot of the learning that we're doing in a class like this might be even more helpful in just discerning what is bad sorts of reasoning. And we're going to be looking in the following weeks, the last weeks of this semester, this year, we're going to be looking at informal fallacies. We're going to be talking about argumentation that takes on an improper form and therefore leads to fallacious conclusions, false conclusions. So we're going to be looking at those together. So I don't disagree with Sayers on that, but it doesn't mean that there's no value at all in establishing positive conclusions, especially when we learn how to validly construct them together. So we're going to, first of all, remember that if we're going to try to establish a conclusion from a set of arguments that is valid, we need to make sure that we take on a valid form. Now, you with me have worked through all of these 24 valid argument forms, and here they are all for you. These are the 24 that are valid. Remember, all of the rest are invalid for those standard categorical syllogisms. And so these forms any one of these forms can be used to establish a valid conclusion. So I'm going to show you how we go about taking a conclusion and making sure that it's constructed in a valid way such that it's leading to a good piece of reasoning, establishing a conclusion from premises that are true that lead necessarily to a true conclusion. So here's the steps you're going to follow. Number one, you're going to put the statement to be established into categorical form. So if you've been given the statement in something else, you're going to, first of all, put that into categorical form. You remember either all, no, some, or some are not. We're going to put it in one of those standard categorical forms. Then we're going to find a valid argument form, mood and figure, from that previous list, from the slide that I just showed you, which has a type of statement as the conclusion. So that's going to be the number one thing you're looking for. You're going to look at the conclusion that you got, that you were provided here from step one, and you're going to make sure, depending on if you were given an A or an E or an I or an O statement, you're going to make sure that is the third thing in that. You remember if we had like something like A, E, I, I'm just making up a form here too. I don't know if this is valid or not, but we'll just say that was our thing. We would make sure that the conclusion, this letter in it, matched what we were trying to find here from step one. Okay. Then we're going to place the statement, step three, place the statement as the conclusion of the selected form of syllogism and fill in the known terms, leaving the middle term blank. And then step four, find a middle term that makes the premises true, thus completing the argument. So you're going to start them with the conclusion. You remember you have like the therefore and the conclusion down here that you've already figured out from steps 1 and 2. And then you're going to fill in whichever form you've picked, these guys, and put them in as the premises 1 and premises 2, or in other words, the major premise, minor premise. And then you leave a blank wherever the middle term should be. And then from that, you're going to be filling in that middle term to make sense of the argument. So let me show you 2 examples, so this might make a little more sense. All right, so example 1. Let's say you are given this conclusion and you're being told to establish this through valid argument. Angels have limited knowledge. Now, the first step is to translate the conclusion into standard form. So in this case, it'd be something like, all angels are limited knowledge beings. Note here, angels have limited knowledge. We're really saying something about all angels. So we're going to use an A statement here. All angels are limited knowledge beings. Remember, we changed this language, the predicate part, into a predicate nominative, and we use a connector here is or are or will be. Then we pick a form that is valid. In this case, we're going to use AAA1 because that is a valid form and it has an A in the conclusion, which is a requirement for this to work. We have to make sure that our conclusion that we have fits with the third letter in that form. That is a valid form. And then what we do in step 3 is again, here's our conclusion. We write this down first. All angels are limited knowledge beings. And then from the form that we've picked, we have an A and an A. So we have to write all and all. And then from this figure 1, we know that the blank for the middle term must be in the first spot and in the second spot. And then we place, here's our major term. This goes into the major premise up here. And here is our minor term, angels, and that goes into the minor premise right here. And now we're just trying to find something that fits in the blank for step 4 that makes both these statements true. So all blank are beings with limited knowledge. All angels are blank. So in this case, we could come up with a term like created beings. So all angels are created beings. That's true. And all created beings are beings with limited knowledge. Also true. Therefore, all angels are limited knowledge beings. So now how this then works. We start with that conclusion. All angels are limited knowledge beings. We then fill in all created beings are limited knowledge beings. All angels are created beings. And we've established the conclusion. We have an AAA1 syllogism, which is a valid form of syllogism. We have a true conclusion that's backed up by true premises. Okay, let's look at a second example. Not all killing is murder. Not all killing is murder. Now, the first step that we have to go through is we have to translate that into standard categorical form. So we have to remember, not all killing is murder. What are we saying by that? When we say not all killing is murder, we're really saying this. Some killing is not murder, right? If not all is murder, the way we translate that into standard form is some killing is not murder. Now, what kind of statement is this? A, E, I, or O? Yeah, this is an O statement. Some are not. So we have an O conclusion, and we can look on that previous slide that I already went through. You can go back and look at that, or you can find it in your book. But you'll find there are 12 valid forms that have an O as the conclusion. So we need to pick one of those. But in this case, we might find it easier to jump to the fourth step and consider a middle term that might work, and then figure out a case in which killing is not murder. What I'm saying here is we don't have to follow steps 1, 2, 3, 4 all in order. In this case, it might be easier to jump to step 4. So we might say something like, well, lawful killing, such as the execution of a criminal, that's not murder. Every execution involves killing a person, and at least some are not murder. So we're going to use, in this case, OAO3. Again, this is on that chart from the previous page. So now we can just fill these in. We're going to start with our conclusion. Some killing is not murder. That's what we have from here. That's what we're trying to establish. Some killing is not murder. Now, if it's OAO, we know that this first spot also has to be some or not. And then the second spot, because it's an A, must be an all. And then the 3 tells us where to put the middle term. In this case, number 3 would be the middle term is in the first slot on both the major and the minor premise. Remember, here's the major term, so that goes up into the major premise. And here's the minor term, goes into the minor premise. So here we have some executions are not murder. Is that true? Yes. Now you might argue that some executions are murder because like they call it an execution, but it really was against the law in some way, shape, or form, where we would judge that the execution as it was being put forward was being done underhandedly or maliciously or wrongfully. We could say that in those cases it was a sort of murder, but we can at least say some executions are not murder, where they really were lawful executions. But certainly all executions are killing, right? I mean, if the person isn't actually executed, we would say that they were not killed. They weren't killed, it wasn't an execution. So all executions are killing. So both these statements are true, thus leading to the conclusion, some killing is not murder. So note, we've established this conclusion on the basis of 2 premises that are true that have been constructed through a valid form, OAO3. Well, I told you today it was a quick lesson, and I'm actually done with my slides. This is a very, very quick lesson this week. Maybe use some extra time on some other subjects that you're working on, so you're welcome for that. There's an assignment that I've posted for you to get a little bit of practice of doing this, and there will be at least one question on the test that you have coming to you which will involve having to establish a conclusion from in this kind of format. So again, I don't expect you to memorize all of these different valid forms. I will provide to you the valid form that you're going to be using on the test. And in the book, when you're working on the homework, again, you don't have to have these memorized. You can use the chart from your book. Please make use of that and make sure it fits into one of those valid forms. Anyway, quick lesson this week. Hope you guys have a good week. Please stay safe. Praying for you guys. I'll talk to you soon.